I can't give you anything but love, baby. That's the only thing I've plenty of, baby. Dream a while, scheme a while, we're sure to find happiness. And I guess all those things you've always
What do you think is the most well-known screwball comedy?
I believe this film, My Man Godfrey, is definitely the most well-known. It was, of course, an instant hit when it came out. It was an instant classic. It was very positively reviewed upon it was well received by the critics, and audiences flocked to it. And it is a masterpiece. It hasn't lost its sheen in all these decades. To be a masterpiece, a film must be exceptional in every element, and this film is so special. My work is to study screwball comedy, and I try not to have favorites like children, but this film is so special.
Is this your favorite?
It is a very special film.
It's up there, okay.
I just love it.
I love the way that it engages with the Great Depression. We've seen that in a few of these films. It Happened One Night that we opened with, and this one I think are some of the few that really, directly deal with the conditions of the time. And it's really interesting to see, and it's interesting to see how relevant, it still is in the social commentary.
Yes, it rings true today. Of course, screwball comedy was the direct advent of 5 political, economic, and social events happening in America during the 30s. The Great Depression, the repeal of Prohibition, women's freedoms and being allowed to start participating in society, the advent of sound film, and then finally the imposition of censorship on all films. They all led to a screwball comedy genre. However, the Depression is probably the #1 factor, and it is such a core component of this film. And the satire on the rich, how frivolous and foolish they look, and also it humanizes the poor, because you really feel through the Godfrey character, you really relate to the people who are homeless and living on the dump. And again, you see this juxtaposition between these rich people. I mean, you've got Cornelia throwing rocks through windows on Fifth Avenue. You have Irene, the property damager, riding a horse into the library. They seem very aimless. They seem to have no values. She talks about the charity, the big event. After all the expenses are paid, there's nothing left for the charity.
Right.
I mean, so you see a high contrast between the wealthy and the poor.
So in my intro, I got his name wrong, the director, not George Cava, but Gregory Cava. Tell me a little bit about him and his work, his body of work.
The movie mentions The Forgotten Man, which is of course a direct reference. It had great relevance to audiences in the Depression because Franklin Roosevelt had referenced The Forgotten Man in a speech in 1932. But I consider Gregory Cava the forgotten director because he was great. He was very well known and a big director in the 30s. However, he's quite obscure today, and there are 2 primary reasons for that. Number 1 is due to health reasons and early death. He didn't have a decades-long body of work. And secondly, he was an independent director. He didn't contract with one particular studio, so there was not a studio promoting his work during his lifetime, nor was there one studio to promote his legacy after his death.
That's interesting. Was that fairly uncommon to have a
Yes.
director not tied to his studio?
And it was really, he had an independent streak. He didn't want to be tied down with one studio, so it was very unusual. He was the son of Italian immigrants, came from modest means. He started his professional life as a cartoonist, illustrator, and transitioned to animation. From there, he went to the silents and then talkies before becoming a film director. And he definitely has a signature style. And all his films deal in class-based comedy. W.C. Fields once stated that Gregory Cava had he was the most brilliant comic director and the most comic mind of anyone in Hollywood. And the class-based comedy there's a dynamic in every one of his films. It's materialism versus humanity and human relationships and community. And you see that over and over again. He also co-wrote all of his scripts that he directed, though he did not seek or receive writing credits. And he encouraged his actors to improvise and to collaborate because he believed it made the performances fresher and more naturalistic. And that's very unusual for a writer to have that kind of freedom, allow that freedom of interpretation. We'll talk about Billy Wilder's writing, and he was the opposite end of the spectrum. You couldn't deviate a word. When there's a comma there, you better pause. So, and Gregory Cava, very opposite, freewheeling, and the script was constantly evolving during the filming, and the pictures are better for it.
You know, this novel that came out, I mean, just is tailor-made for that sensibility,
Yes.
right? I mean, the Godfrey character is
Yes.
just so perfect, and it's interesting because even when you meet him, you know, it's like you can tell that there's so much kind of mystery. It's like, who is this guy?
Yes, indeed. And it's a shame that Gregory Cava did not get to continue his career. He unfortunately had a personal demon, alcoholism, that he could never get ahead of. He went to sanitariums repeatedly, trying to he could not get control of it, and it affected his personal life profoundly and his professional life. In 1948, he was filming the One Touch of Venus film with Ava Gardner, and his behavior, because of the alcoholism, he was fired from the job. He didn't work again, and he was dead 4 years later. So
Wow.
it was very sad. But this character really is, I think it's his masterwork. And you would talk about the character of Godfrey. Godfrey is a prince. I mean, he is a rich man who's disguised himself as a bum, and he rescues his family, and he helps them to regain human values. You know, from his character throughout the film, he sets very clear boundaries for the people. All the women are in love with him. They're all crying when he's leaving. But yet he keeps that respectful distance. Not only is he a very competent butler, but also he's ingenious in terms of his business background, the way he understands what's happening to Bullock Enterprises, and he shorts the stock so that he can then buy the stock very cheap, and also that funds his operation to make the Dump Entertainment Club, which houses and employs 50 homeless people. So he was very aspirational and inspirational for audiences of the time period and for today.
Yeah, it looks like a great night spot. I mean, I would I would love to go to the Dump. It looks awesome. So, and the family is just something else. Oh my gosh, it's hilarious. I mean, and Irene is just, yeah, definitely a screwy dame, right?
She is for sure, and she is kind and empathetic, but she is a flawed character. She is a flawed heroine because she is spoiled and she is very naive. However, she is the quintessential screwball heroine because she's self-directed, she drives the plot of the film, and of course she upturns normal courtship rules.
Yeah, we're getting married now. Yeah, she clearly likes to get what she wants.
Yes.
And Carole Lombard is just, I mean, she's her comic timing, I mean, the physicality of her performance is just spectacular.
She is universally thought of as the queen of screwball comedy genre, and it's well-deserved. From my research, it seems her personal attributes most closely fit the dynamic of the character, the archetype of the screwball heroine. She was zany and madcap. She was a fast talker and had an effervescent personality and was very carefree. She was very funny. So all those attributes that we love in the screwball comedies, she embodied in real life. And she started out as a bathing beauty working for Max Sennett in his comedies. And then she got a contract with Paramount. Unfortunately, they used her in melodramas, in musicals, westerns. so there was, her natural attributes were not showcased at all. And it was only when the great director, Howard Hawks, saw her at a party and observed her interacting with people and realized she had never been cast in a film that was anything like her natural character. He immediately cast her in his upcoming film, 20th Century, which of course was one of the 3 films that ushered in the screwball comedy genre. And it was such a natural fit, and she just shined in it, and she was off and running. Ernst Lubitsch, who was a great director, but also at that time an executive at Paramount, he then put her in 2 screwball comedies. Again, she knocked it out of the ballpark. From there, she made My Man Godfrey. From there, she went to make Nothing Sacred, which is a blistering satire on the media empire and reckless journalism and fake news. And then 2 more, she made the To Be or Not to Be, which is Alfred Hitchcock's only screwball comedy. And then, I'm sorry, that was Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And then her final film before her tragic death at 33 was To Be or Not to Be. She and Clark Gable had deep roots in Palm Springs. They honeymooned.
Really?
They honeymooned at the home of Marion Davies, which is located on Tockwoods Canyon Way. It is now that mansion has been turned into the bed and breakfast, the Willows.
Oh, God,
And
that's gorgeous.
from there, and it was quite the gossip, the scuttlebutt is that they wouldn't leave her home. They were so happy there, they loved Palm Springs. So they did end up buying a home in Old Las Palmas on Chino Drive.
Marion Davies
So-
is finally like, okay, that was fun. Thanks, guys.
Right, but
Like,
she
did you-
finally did get him out, and then they bought a home here.
I can't imagine. Could you imagine going to a dinner party at Carole Lombard and Clark Gable's house? I mean, what a couple,
Yeah.
right?
Yes,
Oy.
indeed.
So I also loved Gail Patrick in this film as Cornelia. She's so icy and just got that perfect kind of almost like an evil queen vibe.
Absolutely.
It's a great performance.
And she's so diametrically opposed to the Irene character. She's
Right.
perfect in it. I mean, she's a schemer, she's mean, she's callous, she's spoiled. She just is so rotten to the core. She tries to seduce Godfrey. She tries to frame Godfrey for theft. I mean, this woman is incredible. She also has 2 landmark screwball comedies that she appeared in besides My Man Godfrey. My Favorite Wife with Cary Grant, and also Love Crazy, again with William Powell. But many people don't know that Gail Patrick, after her acting career, had quite a second act. She became one of the first female executive producers in Hollywood.
Really?
Yes, she was very well read, and she was a great admirer of the attorney and author Earl Stanley Gardner. And he had written the series of novels based on the Perry Mason character he created. And they had been made several times into films and radio broadcasts that he hated. And he vowed never to allow his works to be adapted again. And she said, please let me try, develop it as a TV series. I will be true to the characters, you'll participate, and you will be proud of it. He finally relented, and so she ushered that in and brought that to the screen. The other thing that was pivotal was Raymond Burr came to audition for the character of Paul Drake for the Perry Mason series. She had seen Raymond Burr in a small but pivotal role in a movie with Montgomery Clift and Elizabeth Taylor, Place in the Sun. And she said, you know, I saw you play the district attorney in that role. Would you consider auditioning for Perry Mason role? And he said yes. Of course, he got the role. And he so embodied and represented the role that Earl Stanley Gardner was re-energized, and he started writing Perry Mason novels again. And at one point he even said, Raymond Burr is Perry Mason, but this second act made Gail Patrick a very wealthy woman.
Oh, wow. Well, good for her. That's so fascinating. You know, one of the things we also haven't really talked about very much is these amazing character actors. They're so
true.
critical.
So true, Lauren. They are the unsung heroes of screwball comedy, and the movie stars do take off all the oxygen in the room. So they don't get much attention, and they should, because without them, these screwball comedies would not be the great movies they are. They give that backbone that is necessary, and they're comic foils for the lead actors. They're so indispensable. This movie is once again a perfect showcase for them, and unusual for the Academy, but they did acknowledge 2 of the character actors with Academy Award nominations. Very unusual, and that would be Alice Brady, who's playing the ditzy mother, and Misha Auer, who plays Carlo, the protege. And yes, I mean his monkey impression.
That gorilla. I mean, how did that not get an Academy Award? What the hell? Hey, who?
I know.
Who beat him that year? Come on, how do you beat the gorilla impersonation? I don't know, whatever.
But it's just, they are 2 of the entire supporting cast. I mean, Eugene Pallette with that bullfrog voice. You just look at him, you listen to him, and you cannot help but crack up. And of course, then there's Franklin Pangborn. He played the auctioneer, and he is so outstanding in every screwball he's in. But what a fine cast. Jean Dixon as the maid. She is a stalwart in many screwball. They're all just superstars of the screwball genre.
Yeah, definitely the unsung heroes.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap with one of your very favorite topics, Art Deco, these sets. I mean, ooh, yikes, gorgeous.
You cannot talk about screwball comedy without talking about Art Deco because they're so intertwined. No genre of film in the 30s has Art Deco represented more than screwball comedy. And of course, first and foremost, it's funnier to see dysfunctional families and bickering and antics when it's in a luxury mansion. Put the same bickering and dysfunctional family in a modest home, not funny, pathetic and sad. But here you've got these lux surrounding, and it's just hilarious. And the most screwball comedies do take place in Manhattan, which at that point in the 30s was the epicenter of urbane sophistication and elegance. And it's part of the satire, and it's that part of the juxtaposition of the very rich and the very poor. And filmmakers were giving audiences what they wanted. They not only liked to see the rich skewered, which boy are they really satirized and lampooned here, but also they were very fascinated by the rich. They wanted to see, how do the rich live and where do they live? So this gives them an incredible opportunity. And the sets become a character unto themselves. And with Art Deco, it is so luxurious. It efficiently conveys the wealth. You don't have to have a bunch of dialogue and backstory. Just the settings give you that. And here you've got wall-to-wall Art Deco. It starts with the opening credits.
Oh, the opening credits, yeah. And it makes so much sense that Gregory Cava had a background as an animator. And they're just, some of the best opening credits
and
of all.
And people who are interested in fonts and graphics, of course, the Art Deco fonts. Then you have the Ritz Plaza Hotel, which has, it's very Art Deco in its decor. The Bullock Mansion, particularly the enormous kitchen, has Art Deco. And then even you go straight through to the dump. The new entertainment spot is beautifully outfitted with Art Deco. And so, that's the thing about these films. They are an historical record of that period of time and that beautiful art form. But for these films, that would be lost.
Anything but love, baby. That's the only thing I've plenty of, baby. Dream a while, scheme a while, we're sure to find.